Figure it out.
Hello, this is Adam Koralik with Flying and Eating. Today, let's go somewhere and do something, and make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Hey everyone, it's Adam here. On the previous episodes of Flying and Eating, we made our way out to Dublin, Ireland. We had adventures out there. Then, ultimately, I met up with my girlfriend, and we went up to Belfast in the United Kingdom in Northern Ireland, and we did a whole bunch of fun stuff. But today, the adventure in Belfast continues. So we're doing something actually touristy for once. This whole adventure, what are we doing? Where are we at? Or should I just show the people?
I think you should just show the people,
All right.
My hair's getting in my face.
Then prepare to do this. Are you ready to go back to Titanic?
It's been 84 years.
That's just how she feels being with me.
Oh,
Yes, so the Titanic was actually built in Belfast originally. Obviously, it sank. Everybody knows that story. But they have this gigantic museum here to basically honor the whole thing. I think this is actually the original site in which it was built. So that's what we're doing today. We pre-booked tickets. We did a whole thing. We're going to go inside. We'll show you some of the exterior first, so some of the bits inside. And then if you're ever up in Belfast, I'm assuming this is something we're going to be able to recommend to everybody.
oh yeah, absolutely, regardless.
Yeah, it's an interesting adventure. It's like, it has some sites. Actually, fun fact about it, so they probably still have the original docks in which it departed from here. If you ever go to New York City, in Manhattan, when the Titanic was obviously intending to go there, hence there's this thing about New York right there where my finger is, originally the Titanic could not actually fit there, so they had to build a special dock for it to arrive at.
Okay.
That dock is still there. They decided to leave it up in honor of it in case it ever shows up, like in Ghostbusters 2, obviously, that's what it's there for. But for real, that's still a thing, and maybe one day we'll go take a look at that in a longer, more proper New York City video, not the little cameo you got at the beginning of this adventure. This bird right here just stole this nice lady's food. Bad bird, bad! Yeah, you run, buddy. Welcome to Titanic Belfast, yes. They also have Titanic garbage cans. So we're inside the museum now, which will have a bunch of information about Belfast as a city, which we've actually shown you guys this building already in real life. And I'm assuming it's all about the story of like what motivated them to make the Titanic and all that sort of stuff. But keeping it real, I think the thing Belfast is best known for is the Titanic, so they're going to use the Titanic Museum as an excuse to shove other Belfast history in your face, right?
Correct.
Right? Yeah, that's what they're doing. That's what they're doing. Oh, we have more than just the Titanic. We know, but that's what we're here for. Behind us, there's just more and more Belfast history and history of Ireland and the Northern Ireland and all that stuff. Again, not really what we're here for, but we're getting up to it. Shipbuilding's up ahead. And here it is, the birth of Titanic and the White Star Line and the shipbuilding era. But yeah, so this ship was actually built like right outside of where we are right now. Obviously, that's the whole point. But it's cool. We'll show you a little bit more because they do have a couple of the original docks still up so you can see them. So we'll take a look at that as best we can. So there's a whole bunch of stuff about White Star Line when they used to be this basically, you can think of them as like a travel company essentially, like a United Airlines or something, but for ships. And they would take you from parts of Europe to North America and back. And obviously, infamously, this, I'm not going to say this killed the company, but it definitely didn't do them any favors. Yeah, there you go. Lots of stuff about them as a corporation and how eventually their success led to the creation of the Titanic. But yeah, back in the day, there would be all these different ship companies kind of competing with each other, and that kind of monetary effort really led to this whole industry and everybody trying to outdo each other. And yeah, that eventually led to, again, the Titanic and everything that it was. Very interesting. This room is literally just about how they designed it, you know, the engineers over there figuring stuff out, and then how they did the actual construction with those like overlay things and do the physical labor. Very impressive feat. The vast majority of photos we have of Titanic are actually from its construction. So in this section, they have it, you know, kind of appear like you're an engine worker, I think, or the construction workers that were building the thing, and then it goes up. That's pretty cool. Once you've gotten to the top of the elevator, you just get up to this viewpoint, I guess, of what it would look like to be up there working on it. You can see straight down if you want. So we're now at the phase where you go to the shipyards part. This is optional. There's a like Disneyland style ride that we're about to hop on. What? It's true. It's a ride. It's a little car. I've been to Disneyland. I know this stuff. Anyway, so we're going to Disneyland ride, but it's not Disneyland. It's Sadland. I get the feeling this is going to be like the Spider-Man ride at Universal Studios, but much, 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 much slower.
Probably, I don't know.
And probably much less Spider-Man.
I'm Spider-Man.
But fun fact, James Cameron almost directed the 2002 Tobey Maguire Spider-Man, and he was going to cast Leo DiCaprio.
What?
That's actually completely true. Look it up.
There ain't no way.
Harder than Wolf. That's where you worked in Belfast. My dad got me my start.
Then my brothers after me. You could hear the noise from where we lived, but nothing prepared you for the size of the place. They put me to work on 401. That's what we called her. We knew she'd be the largest passenger ship in the world, but we didn't call her Titanic then. Pride of Belfast.
Thank you for joining us. The tour will end in a few seconds. Please exit the car carefully and to make sure you don't leave any personal possessions behind.
Yeah, the ride was okay. It's pretty benign. It doesn't really do much. It just gives you a little tour around and just shows you kind of informational stuff about what the construction was like and what it was like to actually do that type of labor. I'd say do it. You're already paid for it to get in here. You don't have to do it, but I'd say do it. It's just a thing, just to do.
Well, I loved it.
Yeah, you
See,
and
I know you probably wouldn't because he doesn't care.
I care. I was one who wanted to come here. You mean I've done the Disneyland rides, so I've done the bigger ones. Bye, I guess. I think we just broke up. So you can actually get a sense of how big the ship actually was, because here is where we are right now, and so the ship end would have been right there. So when you pull up here, essentially the ship would have been looking you right in the face right there. Once upon a time, but not once upon a time because it actually did happen, the ship was right there and the Olympic was over there. That's pretty cool. But it was built right there in that spot. So obviously we just showed you the real ship dock, but these are the photos of what they looked like at the time. I'm sure you've seen a lot of these referenced over the years if you've paid any attention to the internet or history at all. But it's kind of interesting just seeing what it used to look like back then and what it looks like now. This would have been the launch day when they threw it into the water. But again, like, we're essentially right here, and now the museum exists on that side, which is very, very interesting. Fascinating, I'd say. A model of the ship. Fun fact about the movie, they only built one side of the ship for the James Cameron movie, and then they had to reverse it. So when they filmed the scenes at the beginning, everybody had to have like hats and everything that were lettering was backwards so they could swap the footage and everything would appear normal. They have a recreation of what appears to be one of the first class cabins. People were tiny, so that's a king-size bed back then. Now it's like a single bed for a fat kid. Here we have an example of the third-class cabins. And I guess people turned to blue back then. That sucks, but at least she made it. So I guess we know which one made it and which one didn't. Haha, terrible, bad joke. Here we have an example of the second-class arrangements, which are definitely better than third class, but obviously nowhere near as good as first class. Second-class stuff doesn't get as much exposure like in the movies or any sort of retelling, so it's kind of nice to see it. Even here, it's just kind of a small little sample size, but cool nonetheless. So of course they have the information about the maiden voyage. Of course it was created here in Belfast where we are currently. It was brought down to Southampton to begin the journey, then went to Cherbourg in France, began upward to Queenstown, and this was where it was last seen until eventually it goes out to sea where it was meant to get to New York and famously never did. This is kind of cool. They have carpet and fabric samples from what was actually on the ship or what would have been on there. I assume these are just recreations. I can't imagine they have originals that would be in that good a shape. So this is cool. They actually have photos of the Titanic departing all these places, Belfast, photos from when it arrived in Southampton, photos from when it arrived in Cherbourg, photos from Queenstown, and where it was supposed to go, which of course it never got to, is New York City. And as I told you, the dock is still sitting there waiting for it. In the end, the only parts that ever actually got to New York were the 13 lifeboats. There's also a big part of Canada, I think it's in Newfoundland, where there's actually like a burial ground for people, for the deceased of the Titanic, for what few bodies they could recover, etc. Maybe we'll go there someday, who knows? So now they're recreating like the decks of the Titanic, and so this is what some note, like letters and things, but presumably from the first class cabin, what the seas would have relatively looked like, etc. The benches, I'm sure you've seen in the James Cameron movie, etc. Ooh, the first class lunch menu. They ain't playing on this one. Look at this. They had fillets of brill. I don't even know what brill is because I'm not rich enough to know what that means. Check it out. They were eating grilled mutton chops. Watch out, Chester A. Arthur. They're going to eat your face. In here, they have the ice warning information and the record, the timeline of the things they were posting to try and get help. And I mean, we all know this story. It's a very sad one. If memory serves me correctly, the Carpathia is the one that ultimately helped them out, but they took 4 hours to get there. So by the time the ship sank, you know, it was the only people that could be saved were the people on the lifeboats. And then famously, the California was within visual eye distance, but just didn't respond due to an argument between the dispatcher guys.
She reared up on end, till at last she was absolutely perpendicular. Then, quite quietly, but quicker and quicker, she seemed just to slide away onto the surface and disappear.
So that's kind of cool. That's one of the actual life vests from the Titanic from that night. And you can see that it has been through some stuff, clearly. A list of survivors and a list of the deceased, and just facts about how many could have survived if they had really properly done it. But I mean, it's a panic situation. It happens, you know, but very sad. So this would be the aftermath section. Never again, of course, because it was such a ridiculous tragedy of events, sequence of things that all went wrong. We have the iceberg path there, which is kind of fascinating. And like, you just study the situation, see like, what did we do wrong? What are all the things we made mistakes with? And a lot of changes were required, of course. They talk about all the single mistakes. You got things like the lifeboats problems, lack of emergency training, the rivets being not as well designed as they should have been, etc., etc. The ignorance of distress calls. There was a lot to it. There was a lot of things, and a lot of changes were made to make, you know, life at sea per se a lot more safe. But at the same time, also, you know, it's the change of times. We don't really have those kinds of cross ocean journeys anymore because everybody kind of switched to aviation. But that too, as an industry, benefited from this because you just look at all the sequence of mistakes one can make and you change them and you make everything safer. And they have bits about the somewhat the discovery and the recovery, the void. The Titanic wasn't discovered until by Robert Ballard, an American who found it in, I believe, 1985. It was just sitting there, kind of mysteriously vanished for all that time. Nobody could find it. The tech obviously didn't exist, but Robert Ballard eventually got that going. And this kind of gives you the modern day like MH370 thing. It's been 10 years since that plane, almost 10 years since that plane went vanished, and someday somebody's going to find it, and there'll probably be some sort of museum to it. And this gives you a sense of how deep it is. There's sea level where they would have been at the time, and it crashed all the way down there. Now, if you were to build the Empire State Building down there, that's as far as it gets. Yep. Here they have a timeline of events of the recovery process, or not recovery, I keep using that word incorrectly, it's just when they actually found it. It's a boiler! On September of '85, when they eventually realized they had found the Titanic, the ship of dreams, and here it is. This room, clearly meant to symbolize the icebergs. This is cool. This is surreal. This is very bizarre. This would be a chair from the first class cabins outside. I don't know if this is an original one. Oh, the original deck chair. Yeah, there you go. This is actually originally was on the Titanic at one point and pulled out of the ocean. These are original photographed negatives from the launch of the Titanic that are still there. Those are originals. That's really cool. We have some original stuff from Wallace Hartley, on loan from a private collection of violins, some notes, documents, and behind us we now have the underwater exploration of the wreckage down there, and it makes you feel like you're in the little, you know, Alvin thing that just kind of floats over and looks at it. So after you get down from there, you'll see like kind of Titanic in pop culture, and it's mostly stuff from the James Cameron movie, but some cool things like Simpsons stuff, board games. There's actually a Kate Winslet Titanic doll. My sister actually used to have that pre-house fire. They have a little Transformers thing, which is actually really cool. And Titanic, the movie album on vinyl, which I actually would want that minus the Celine Dion song, to tell you the truth.
I'm the king of the world, but not confident about it.
Now, this might be shocking, but there is, in fact, the rarest thing you'll ever see at any sort of tourist attraction, a gift shop. These are very, very rare, but we found one. Gee, I wish I could figure out why they were selling that. If only there was some clue somewhere. I just can't figure this out. We saw a little postcard about Belfast engineering, obviously the Titanic famous, but another one that doesn't get as much credit, right there, the DeLorean. Now, why would that be interesting to me? I'm not entirely sure. So here at the Titanic store, there's kind of a subtle little bit here. Behind him is a photo of the Titanic that actually is the last known photo ever taken of the Titanic. So it's like seeing the Titanic for the last time. Very fitting at the end of the gift shop. So we just came out of the Titanic experience. What'd you think of the experience?
I thought it was really cool, actually. I mean, I'm really into Titanic as a whole because I've watched the movie a million times over. I've studied it online, all kinds of things. So actually seeing all that stuff in person, including the actual artifacts that will come from people's bodies, was a little bit sad, but still really cool.
Yeah, that was pretty nice. I went to, when I was a kid, there was a traveling Titanic museum kind of after the James Cameron movie blew up. And so they took a bunch of artifacts around. So they brought to Chicago once and I did to that. But this one is like the fixed one that's always here. And it makes sense because we're the exact spot where the Titanic was built. Like we're right there, right in front of it. And so it's really cool that the city actually decided to kind of honor that because that's like, I mean, from an outsider's perspective, apologies to anybody from Northern Ireland, that's what Belfast is best known for, is the creation of the Titanic, right?
Correct.
So it's really cool they actually built something to that. So let's go explore that, and I hope you guys enjoyed that little tour inside. And if you're ever in Belfast, I would think we would both highly recommend coming out to the Titanic experience.
Absolutely.
At one point, the bow of the ship would have been here, at least at the ground level, but of course, as it goes up, it continues to angle, much like they designed this building. So imagine right there is the base of the Titanic, that's this spot, and then it would rise up like that. And if the geometry they did inside is correct, the tip of it, that part, would actually reach about to the window, which is kind of a genius little design. And then when you flip around here, you can see it runs all the way to the edge to the sea there. And then they have these little pillars that are essentially replicate the mast that was outside of it for the original construction, which are now currently light pillars. And then they have what probably are original rail systems that would allow them to move things and design parts. They've also done various, I'm not going to say chalk outlines, but for lack of a better word, let's say that's what they are, to kind of give you a sense of where the major components of the ship are. So I think what we're going to do is just do a complete walk from the front to the end. Ship bow to stern. So right here presumably is where the first, stack would have been. And then it continues on and you can see every single one of the smokestacks, for lack of a better word. And then you can see where the lifeboat outlines are. And just walking across it, you get a sense of just how massive this object would have been, like when it actually physically existed here. It's surreal to me, man. Like as a kid, when they first started teaching us history and stuff, and I first learned about the basic story of the Titanic, well before the James Cameron movie, because I'm really old, unlike this one. I'm not, I'm much older.
I'm maybe 30, I'm getting there.
I'm 36. I'm mostly dead at this point.
Well, that sounds like you probably.
It is my problem. But anyway, so I remember, seeing all these books and all these images of the ship being built, because the vast majority of photos we have of the ship are under its construction phase. All of that exists. That was all right here in this spot. And I think these H&W things they kept up, I think actually were part of its original construction. I think that has, I don't remember what the story of that is, but the H&W yellow things, I think those were once over this. Don't quote me on that for sure, but I think those are actually the original things they helped to use build it. And to think that all those photos, all of them, were taken right here where I'm standing right now is just, it's like, who knew, like as a kid, that I would be able to come to this place and actually be here and witness this like physical reality, to see this spot. It's surreal, man. And even if you decide you want to come out here, you don't actually, you can go to the museum, of course, like we did, but just to walk this part is just totally free. Like you can just walk out here and just do this. So that's really cool. And I'm not no shipbuilder, obviously, but the big question comes up, like, how do they get it from here into the water? If I understand correctly, they basically would have things like that would help just kind of lift it, and it angles it down, and then eventually just kind of falls backwards into the water. So right here, at one point, the Titanic just kind of rammed into this water and then took off from here. And yeah, that was right there, was the beginning of its original journey from Belfast down to Southampton. And it started all right here. And you essentially just saw us walk the entire length of the Titanic deck. How cool is that? Right there in that spot was the first time the Titanic ever entered the water. So as a little bonus, right outside of the Titanic exhibit, you have the SS Nomadic, which is actually the only surviving White Star Line ship that is still around. The rest either sank or were decommissioned, destroyed. This one is still, I'm not gonna say operational in the sense that it's doing anything at sea, but it is here. The Nomadic, what was it again? It was a ship that was like, you would use it to get from, oh yeah, they actually have photos of it. So it was like a little courier boat that would take you out to the Olympic, which was the Titanic sister ship, or the Titanic itself. It was at Cherbourg in France. The Titanic didn't actually dock, it just kind of waited out in the harbor, and this boat actually transferred people over from France to the boat. Molly Brown, unsinkable Molly Brown.
New money.
New Money, yes, thank you, good reference. She actually once rode on this exact boat. So just as an FYI, your ticket that got you into the main Titanic exhibit actually gets you into this. We didn't know that. So this is like a bonus, but you still have to pay for the main thing. So good thing we didn't throw away our tickets. And inside they have models and things like that, and very cool. Yeah, again, it's weird to think this is a courier ship. This is a real one that was actually used, and a lot of people boarded the Titanic, unfortunately, to their doom using this boat. But seeing the only White Star Line ship in existence still, this is the last one, the one that is not at the bottom of the ocean or not decommissioned entirely. We're in it right now. I'll just give you a quick look around at this place. This is really cool. All the White Star Line history, all the Titanic history. But yeah, it's much smaller than something like the Titanic, obviously, because it's just a little courier ship. But yeah, that's neat. And upstairs, they don't allow entry, it looks like, but yeah, no problem there. Very neat. So we're downstairs now. We have the little portholes you can see out. People would have just stayed in here very briefly to get from point to point. No entry, crew only. Don't worry, we're not going there. White Star Line, you know, chairs and things. I think it's really neat that they allow you to actually just go in here and kind of walk around freely. But obviously, it's all been renovated. And so here you can see like kind of the layout of it. So everybody would have just kind of mingled and hung around, got drinks for the few minutes they were on board. There's some cabin crews there, etc. But you know, the engine room, all that sort of stuff. So yeah, they have a little bit of information about not only this, but also its shipboard port, which was the interesting thing it was known for in, you know, the Titanic era, but also how this thing served during World War I, which is also how, I believe it was the Olympic, was also the one that was turned into a medical frigate and ultimately destroyed in World War I, which is why that doesn't survive. A lot of the White Star Line stuff had actually been destroyed during both World Wars. Or just sunk from different reasons. That's why it's kind of interesting. This is the only one that's still around. So here they have crew quarters where they would have just had little bunk beds to kind of sleep in, where they would have just had some food and all that and put their things. FYI, on this ship they actually do have a bathroom. Just one men's, one woman's. I'm going to pee on a White Star Line ship. Never thought I'd be able to do that. So this side is about celebrities that once rode on here. Charlie Chaplin once rode on this boat. Yeah. The U.S. troops, of course, that's really cool too. Freedom and stuff. You guys will remember John Jacob Astor in the Titanic movie, and they have things like credits for what they're known for. He was just known for being a millionaire. Good for him. So you can actually go upstairs and come out onto the ship deck and just kind of look outward. Not much, but it's cool because it rained this morning. There's actually water on there. It makes you feel a little more legitimate. But not surprisingly, they have various stuff blocked off. I believe this ship was technically French, hence there's a French flag back there. But yeah, they're not, even though they clearly have signs for stuff, they're clearly not just allowing people back there today for whatever reason. We're now up at the top of the ship, so there's the only one of those that still survives, those original smokestack things. Of course, we have the controls. I'm obviously not really into ships, but you know the terms probably better than I do. But it's cool to see that angle from here. And of course, you obviously have the Titanic Museum back there. Yeah, man, I gotta say, this is pretty cool. And then you see that paddy wagon bus driving by? So if you're ever in Dublin, you can actually just ride one of those all the way up here and just do the whole thing. So I would recommend it. This is very cool coming up to Belfast. I'm glad we did this. Babe, are you glad we did this?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
It's been fun. Good morning. It's day, I have no idea here in Belfast, but our adventure here is coming to an end. We're heading back to Dublin. Did you have fun here?
I did, yeah.
What was your favorite part, other than the rain?
Yeah, and the thunder.
Yeah, thunder is just lightning.
Probably the Titanic Museum.
Definitely the Titanic Museum.
And shopping.
But it was also just cool to come up to the UK, technically. And we had Indian food, which, by the way, we forgot to tell you what we did for dinner last night. We just went and got more Indian food. It was really quite good. I enjoyed it, as I always do. So anyway, yeah, now we're going to hit the train and onward to Dublin.
Yep.
So we are officially back in Dublin now, and the plan is very simple. I'm heading home tomorrow. She's heading off tomorrow. Tonight, though, we're going to go get some food over at a place called Murray's Bar. I've been looking at it the whole time I was here. They've got some pretty cool stuff on the menu. One in particular I'm very curious about because I've been looking for it forever. I didn't expect to find it in Ireland, but we'll see how this goes.
I found it.
She did, to be fair. She found it.
Yeah.
And we'll see if it's in stock. So this is what I'm getting, the beef and Guinness pie. This will be my main course. I've had one of these before, very good. But the thing I was uniquely excited about is they have chicken wings. But check this out, sticky Coca-Cola barbecue. I've been seeing this online for years, had never found a place that actually does it. Tonight, we find out. I am now in the hotel for the night near the airport in Dublin, so I thought I'd give you a little post-game about the restaurant. Murray's was pretty good. My beef stew thing was nice. The Coca-Cola chicken wings were weird. I don't think I could have identified them as Coca-Cola if I had been told that, but it was good food all the same. The girlfriend seemed to enjoy her chicken strips, and the brownie, although she got this brownie that was kind of like the crust side, was a little hard to eat, and yeah, I tried it, and she was totally right. So Murray's is good, but not necessarily the best. So the adventure in Dublin has concluded. The missus must now take her shuttle onward, and I must take my magical aluminum bird powered by dinosaurs, liquid dinosaurs, back off to North America. So thank you very much for being part of the video and having fun with me and all that sort of stuff. And how are you feeling?
Sad, but looking forward to the future.
The next adventure awaits, as I'm sure you guys will see. So anyway, from my perspective, onward into the airport. This is going to be kind of interesting. I don't remember, I've never actually flown out of Dublin Airport back to the US, but I've talked about this before. It's kind of fascinating. The Dublin Airport has US clearance already here, so technically, as I understand it, you clear United States Customs while you're still in Ireland. So you cease to be in Ireland while still being in Ireland. The only other country where this happens is Canada. When you fly out of Canada, you technically clear US Customs. That way, when you arrive, you don't have to deal with immigration. With the Canadians, I know it's a security thing. I don't know why the Irish do this, but I'm not complaining. So I'm all checked in over there, and again, I'm not, if you guys saw the previous Dublin video where it was just complete chaos getting out of here, this is the American section. As you can see, it actually operates correctly. You can just go check in, drop your bag off real easily, and move on. You don't have to sit in lines for hours and hours waiting for the gate to open, so you can barely make your flight. I do, thank you for not American Airlines, United though. Thought I'd give you more of a look inside of Terminal 2, the far superior terminal here at Dublin Airport. If you can ever avoid flying here domestically, you absolutely should. But internationally, at least to the US, it seems to be perfectly fine so far. But I'm really looking forward to checking out that pre-clearance thing. That's going to be cool. Okie dokie, so now it's time to go through airport security. Keep in mind that the European Union does this a tad differently than, say, the United States. So there is no TSA. TSA is an American construct here. They basically just kind of scan your boarding pass, and then that's about it. After that, you have to, do the normal security thing where, like, they check all your items or whatever, but there's not much of a filtration process here. Hence, the Americans put an additional one, specifically when going to the US. Europeans cannot run airports. Jesus. So like right beyond, what I showed you guys, you scan the pass and then it's like wait for normal security lines. They go through every single item to the point of absurdity. And it's, to be fair, there's people in the lines like, oh, I didn't know that this was a liquid. I didn't know metal sets off metal. In fact, you get the usual barrage of stupidity. Anyway, so physically I went through just fine, but I was the last in the line before they closed the line. And so I just had to wait through all of it, which I don't mind. But, they checked my bag, and it should have been benign. There was really nothing in there. They did like 3 scans on it, and they had a problem with my cologne, and they had a problem with some moisturizer, which was a very small little vial. And he's like, you can't have these. And I was like, what are you talking about? Like, neither of them exceed the limit. And I was like, he was gonna, so I have a bottle of Sauvage, which is like a $100 cologne bottle, and they were trying to seize it. And I was like, dude, you literally sell it right beyond there. It's the same product. So then he was like, okay, well then you have to put that one in a plastic bag. So he let me keep my bottle of cologne, but he did take my moisturizer and he threw it away. Even though not only was the bottle at its maximum under the limit, it had like 1/4 the amount of liquid in it anyway. So I think the guy was just being to be frank, but whatever, I don't care. So now I genuinely hate European airports. I love Europe, I love the people, but they do not know how to run airports. They truly do not. Anyway, now I'm going to kill a little time wandering around here and then head to US Customs. As you can see, now that the cologne is in a plastic bag, it's obviously very safe. As a huge middle finger to them, I'm going to undo this. After you do the Irish security and you walk through, you go through US pre-clearance. Now, fortunately, US pre-clearance, it's a little weird. So they have it set up so like you have to go through airport security again, but because the Americans do this correctly, they've already got it figured out and you don't have any problems, you just get right through it. Then you move on to a second section, which is the actual security part. So if you are a non-US citizen, you can go through there. If you're a US citizen, you go through standard, or if you go through something like global entry, which is what I have, went ahead and used that. And I'm immediately through with no problems. So I'm technically actually back on American soil. I'm no longer actually in the Republic of Ireland, technically, legally, which is cool. But it just is a constant reminder. Americans do airports very well. Europeans are awful at it. I can't stress this enough. European airports are utterly incompetent. They have really stupid rules that cause a lot of people to miss flights. Like, for example, not telling people what their gate is until it's already boarding. Stupid things like that. I have no love for European airports. So here's a fun one. So I don't know what gate to go to because the stupid board says like USPC or something like that. So I checked in the app, and the app tells me where to go. So the Americans will tell me what to do. The Europeans will not, specifically the Irish in this case. Europeans, I'm begging you, stop believing that trains are the future. It's 1800s technology. Invest in aircraft and learn how that infrastructure works, please.
Oh, good little purse.
Are you driving that? Okay, I am now back home in Chicago, and let's talk for a second. One, I realized I was probably a little haphazard in the previous section when we were leaving Dublin, just because European airports are so awful, and I'm still very bitter about that. But if that wasn't entirely clear, it was just complications with security that are just stupid procedures that the Americans would never do, as well as just the inefficiency of when they tell you when your gate is or where it is, all that sort of stuff. They literally do everything wrong. So it's just frustrating. But anyway, I will give them credit for the fact that the pre-clearance thing into the U.S. is nice, because here I've just landed at O'Hare's Terminal 1, domestic. And that's great, because I don't have to do anything special. In fact, it actually means a little bonus. We're going to stop here at the United Club, at Civilization, because I got kind of screwed on this on the way out of Dublin. So yeah, the food on the flight was fine. It was just like a very basic meal of like some pasta and chicken, and actually had a caprese salad, props for that. But now I'm gonna go in here and get a free meal before I go home. So I bet you thought the video was over. So this was kind of a unique situation. I've never filmed at this point. So after all that, I came down here to get my bag, which has never been a problem for me. My bag wasn't there. It was like, huh, what's going on? And so I went over to the United ticket agent, and because I decided to stop in the club lounge, as you guys know, so I decided to just kind of chill. I've never had a problem doing that with my bag. Bag was missing. Usually they just keep it in the gate or whatever, like a cage. You give them a little ticket, they give it to you, no big deal. But it wasn't in there, and they didn't know where it was. But they were like, hang on, they probably fell off like behind, you know, around the counter, like in the back. And I was like, ooh, this is getting sketch. What if somebody took my bag? Which is like, nobody really steals luggage, but it's not impossible. So anyway, they go back there, and then all of a sudden, she's like, yeah, if anything comes out, there'll be like a siren that goes on, and the thing will start turning. Then all of a sudden, it turned on, and boom, there was my bag. So everything worked out just fine. So if you're ever in that situation, don't panic. Keep that little ticket. They give you this little ticket, at least United does, when you check in your bag, which, just a little sticker bit. Keep that. Keep that. Always have a paper trail, and that goes for paper tickets as well. It's very, very helpful. I know we live in the digital age, and everybody thinks that's better. It's not. Get your paper. Anyway, that'll do it for this video, series of videos. So thank you guys so much for watching. I appreciate it. As always, please like, comment, and subscribe. Check out all my social media stuff in the description. Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, Discord, Patreon, etc. Also, check out my girlfriend's stuff. I'll put that in the description as well. You can contact her and tell her how much better she can do than me. But anyway, thank you guys very much for watching, and I'll see you all later.